today I am so pleased to welcome a very special speaker who delivers more than 70 keynote programs a year on the topic of sales, marketing, and the future of business. But his story didn't start on a stage. It started with a business that was run out of an old beat-up pickup truck that he turned into one of the largest manufacturers in the country. So he was named one of 20 speakers you don't want to miss by Forbes. Marcus Sheridan has also been called a web marketing guru by the New York Times. His book, They Ask You Answer, has been hailed as the #1 marketing book to read. He has inspired thousands of audiences and helped millions of people from all over the world achieve their own success with this philosophy. And he also loves condiments more than most. And actually, he has a special refrigerator in his kitchen for sauces you've probably never heard of. Sounds like something I would love to do one day. Ladies and gentlemen, prepare to be engaged, inspired, and moved into action. Marcus Sheridan, thank you so much for your time today.
We are going to have a great conversation, my friend. And this is a cause in an industry, the trades industry, that I'm such a huge advocate of. My son is actually 17, and he's going to be an electrician. I just love this industry. And there's no better time than now to take advantage of some of the opportunities that we have, which I'm sure we'll dive into. So let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay. Well, first of all, a little bit of background for people that don't know you, that this is their first introduction into your world. Marcus, what's your mission in life?
Ultimately, I'm just trying to help people to become better teachers so as to induce more trust from one to another with their audience. Now, sometimes we call that marketing. Sometimes we call that sales. Sometimes we call it leadership communication. It really just depends. But if you look at really what marketing is, it's our ability to engender enough trust for there to be an exchange of business. Really, that's all it is. And so that's why when you talk about things like marketing or sales, you should start with principles, not necessarily platforms. Platform like Facebook, it comes and it goes, right? So eventually it's not going to be here. If I say to you, is Facebook going to be fundamental to your business in 20 years? You don't know that. But if I say, is trust going to be fundamental to your business, to your success, to your life in 20 years? You'd say, well, yeah, it certainly will be. It's not going to go away, right? So that's what I'm always leaning into, how to get more of that magical thing that we call trust.
You know, on a personal level, that is so relevant to me because I think trust, the way you've put in your framework, it's a relatively new thing to teach, because although trust is fundamental in business transactions and sales and marketing, they don't, or until recently, they didn't necessarily teach it to you in sales and marketing as probably the #1 most important factor. And with the changing nature of communication and technology and how people are selling, trust has now jumped the line to the #1. So can you just tell me a little bit in your view, like why is trust so important, or creating trust, but why do people need to learn how to use it and learn new tools to communicate trust these days?
Well, I think if you look at let's just look at one of the biggest trends that's happened in business, certainly over the last 100 years. And that is today, on average, 80% of the buying decision is made before someone reaches out to a company. In other words, they're 80% through that buyer's journey. And that number has grown dramatically over the last 25 years. 25 years ago is really when the internet got going seriously. Right around 1996, started to take off, email started to take off. So that's when it started getting significant momentum. And that was the moment that we became empowered as buyers to start to research like we'd never had researched before. Within our fingertips, we could learn about stuff that previously we had to ask someone about. And so we've all essentially developed this ability to vet, to vet companies and products and decisions and all these different things, right? And through that journey, we have developed a mindset that helps us to know whether a company seems right, smells right, looks right, or not. And so how does this happen? Well, it simply happens when a company is willing to think like us, talk like us, address the questions, the worries, the concerns, the issues that we have as buyers. And if we get that from a company, we are so blown away. We're so pleased. And we're willing to go back to them again and again and research more and more. This is how we have evolved. And so we can now develop a trust with a company without ever walking through their doors or talking with one of their employees in a way we have never have, ever. That's powerful. That's a good thing. And we're all responsible for that because we're all buyers, we're all consumers. So if we lean into that as businesses and we say things like, okay, well, what would I want in this moment as the buyer, as the consumer? Would I want them to talk about this? Would I appreciate this if they address this particular question, this particular worry of mine? Would it draw me closer to them if they were willing to be honest in this moment, be unbiased, call it for what it is, say it like it is? Of course, all these are the elements of the framework of the Ask You Answer, which people know me for. But the Ask You Answer is that singular obsession with what our customers want to know. What are their questions? What are their worries? What are their fears? And then it's the willingness to address it. We can't always answer it perfectly or specifically, but we can always address it. And the beauty behind that, Francis, is we are willing to address it. It puts us in a class by ourselves because that makes us very unique as business owners. That we were the one that was willing to talk about it and to show it and to say it when nobody else, none of our other peers in the industry were willing to talk about it or show it or tell it. And because of that, we became the trusted voice. That's the idea. That's why the trust component matters so much. But it starts with the mindset of, am I willing to obsess over the questions, worries, fears, issues, concerns? And then, am I willing to address them, ideally on my website, through video, through social, and other platforms?
Can you give us an example in practice of what you're talking about? So
Yeah,
that maybe some of these small businesses can actually start to see how can that apply to them? How can they do that?
So let's look at a typical trades business, right? And I've worked in a ton because you see, for those that don't know my story, I own a swimming pool company to this day. I've owned one since 2001. We install fiberglass swimming pools. It became one of the largest installers, builders of fiberglass pools in the world. And was the first fiberglass swimming pool franchise in the United States, actually, I think in the world. And so we have franchisees called River Pools and Spas, is the name of the company, River Pools, all over the US right now. And so that's why I have lived the life of someone in the trades. And I understand it at a very local level as a business. I've almost lost my business before because of the crash of 2008, 2009, almost filed bankruptcy. And so that was when I leaned into the internet and leaned into the way buyers have changed. And I said, essentially, you know what? After I started reading all those fancy phrases like inbound marketing, content marketing, and social media and blogging, what I heard in my simple pool guy mind is, Marcus, if you just obsess over your customers' questions and you're willing to address them on your website, you might change your business. And so what I did one night, Francis, is I brainstormed all the questions I had received over the years from people that had been buying a pool from me, in my case, right? And there was lots of questions that I got that, frankly, nobody had bothered to address. And those very same types of questions, you can find them across all industries. So let me give you a classic example for swimming pools, and then we'll look at it at an even bigger scale. So one of the number one questions I used to get when people would call us up, they would say, hey, Marcus, I'm not going to hold you to it, but give me a feel. How much would this cost, just roughly? Could you at least give me a sense? That's because when you're in school, how much time do you spend learning how much a swimming pool should cost? Nobody teaches you this. So you don't know. You have no idea. And so you either live in a state of ignorance and don't really know until you get a quote. But lots of times back in the day when I first started the business, I was giving people quotes and they were shocked at how much it was. And so why were they shocked? Well, they were shocked because nobody had taught them. Nobody being me. You see, if you're having bad conversations with leads, with prospects, it's because your messaging stinks. You improve your messaging, the quality of conversations gets dramatically better. It is cut and dry. And so I openly talked about cost. I was the first one in the swimming pool industry to talk about cost and price. We talked about things like what drives cost up, what makes a pool expensive, what makes it cheap. Why are some companies more expensive than other companies? We talked about different packages from the simple to the complex, and we gave price ranges as to what you might expect to spend. But we said ultimately the answer to your question is it depends. But because we were willing to explain the why it depends, because it's easy and lazy to say it depends. How much is it? Well, it depends. That's lazy. Here's what's powerful. You say, well, it depends, but let me tell you all the factors that will explain why it depends. Now we're cooking with gas, right? Now we're cooking with gas. And so you got to explain those things. Now, take an electrician, for example. Different types of services they offer. Some main services, right? Let's say, something as simple as installing a ceiling fan. All right, this is the most basic of services. Many people listening to this might not offer it. Some of them might, whatever. So do you think anybody's ever been online and researched how much does it cost to install a ceiling fan? Of course, people have researched that before. But how many electricians want to answer the question? Almost nobody. Why? Because they'll say things like, well, every job is different. There's lots of factors. There's lots of considerations. Okay, well, explain it. Explain the considerations. Why would one job cost 200 pounds versus 400 pounds versus 600 pounds, etc., right? Like, what would be the dang difference? And the key is that you're just willing to explain the thing and explain why some of your peers are so expensive, why some are so cheap. And you could do that in every single industry, in every single service. You take a plumber, there's some major different types of main services that many plumbers offer. Talk about what each one costs, but explain it well. Don't just throw a number on there, because then, yes, that is commoditizing. The thing that really commoditizes any industry, any service, any product is when the marketplace doesn't understand the differences between choice A and B. And when they don't understand the difference between choice A and B, they think it's the same. What they end up doing is they choose the cheaper one of the two as their fundamental variable in their buying decision. That's commoditization. So what causes commoditization is ignorance in the marketplace. If you instead say, I won't allow ignorance to exist, I'm going to teach the marketplace, I'm going to make sure they know these things. That way they make informed decisions. You become the voice of trust. Your sales conversations become much more productive. Your closing rates go way up. People stop saying, oh my goodness, I can't believe it cost that, because they already know. And oh, by the way, if you're more expensive than everybody, good, because you can talk about why you're 10% more than the marketplace. Talk about the extra things that you do and why you said, we are not going to be the cheapest. We're going to probably be more expensive, but here's why we're going to be more expensive. And we feel like there's a market for that. And now if you explain that, suddenly there's a group of people that are saying that's exactly what I want. And then there's another group of people that are saying that's not what I want. By the way, you wouldn't have closed them anyway. So you didn't lose anything. The only thing you gained in this case was time back to do that which you value. That's beautiful. That's powerful. But only happens, again, if you obsess over what they're thinking about and you're willing to address it.
It's so true and so relevant right now. So, we're trying to help these businesses with marketing, and we see a lot of the same cookie cutter websites, cookie cutter west messages. It talks about heating solutions, talk
Yep,
about
yep,
boilers.
yep.
And we're trying to flip the narrative around so that actually you're talking about your customers and what are their pain points, and helping them. I guess the way you communicate that trust and authority is also a way to differentiate your business as well.
100%. I've got a heating and cooling company here in the U.S. that is a client of mine. They're called Fire and Ice, and they are just their business is exploding because of following this approach of they ask you answer. What's really great, I mean, this is good and bad, I guess, but in every industry you have opportunities. As a pool guy, I had a major opportunity. Why? Because the marketing bar was so stinking low.
Yeah.
And so my peers were just busy digging holes. And I said, well, what happens if we dig holes and we actually teach the world about everything to do with digging a hole? And then suddenly we became the most trafficked swimming pool website in the world. In the world. That's amazing. And so this is what can happen for any industry, especially when your competitors aren't doing this. Let me give you another example of something everybody should be doing. You should definitively talk about in your messaging on your website who you are and who you're not a good fit for. Who you are and who you're not a good fit for. And this isn't just you, this could be your products. So let's say there's a particular type of boiler that you sell, a particular type of heat pump that you sell, right? So if you're talking about any model of any product, you should always talk about who's it for and then who's it not for. Now, the moment you're willing to say what you're not or what something is not, that's the moment it now officially becomes dramatically more attractive to those who you are a good fit for, or to those buyers who are a good fit for that particular product. You see, almost nobody does this though. So because almost nobody does this, all we're used to hearing is this particular model is great, and it's great because it does this, this, and this, and here's why it's wonderful. But nobody says, but now, when would it not be the right fit for you? If you're this, this, and this is probably not your best option. But if you're looking for this, this, and this, well, then this might be a great fit for you. And notice I said it might be a great fit for you. I didn't say this is absolutely the one, because that's a lie. You don't know. You have to allow your buyers to make their decisions. It's your job to give them the information in a way that's almost disconnected with outcome. Don't show your bias. I see content online all the time that says things like why you should buy such and such, or why you should never buy such and such, or anything along those lines of why you should. That is ineffective. Why? Because you can already tell that that author, that person, is trying to convince you, and so therefore they're innately biased. So an example of this, let's say I don't build concrete pools, for example. And so I don't want to say why fiberglass pools are better than concrete. That's dumb. That immediately shows that I only have my self-interest at heart here. I'm not looking out for you. I'm looking out for me. I'm trying to convince you to buy my stuff. Dumb. So instead of that, the title of that video, of that article, of that post should be concrete versus fiberglass pools. Which is really the best choice for you? Mm-hmm. Now, anybody's going to lean into that and say, okay, you got my interest. Because that sounds like it was written or produced by somebody who has my best interest at heart. That's the goal. That's how we need to think as a business. And sales doesn't really change. The best salespeople, they present the thing incredibly effectively, but in a way of, And you do what's right for you. But here's all the facts. And they help you figure out what's the right fit for you. Best salesperson is willing to take you to a product or service or company that's not their product or service or company because they care more about your outcomes than they do about making the sale, knowing that that's actually going to lead to more sales ultimately. That's the idea. Comes back to trust.
Yeah, it sounds so easy, but so many businesses don't do it. They don't think that way. And it's very profound. I find this very profound as well, even for our own marketing as well, because I think that um, there's an inherent fear in people, right? There, because
Sure.
not many small businesses have a surplus of cash, right? And they're all managing their cash flow. They're making ends meet. And so there's always, because we're in such an ultra competitive marketplace, there's this fear in when it comes to marketing and everything you do about, keeping your secrets close to your chest, or, not giving away too much to your competition as well. And I loved one of the in one of your talks where you're talking about, doing a bit of a summary on your competitors and
Oh,
what
yeah.
they're offering as well, from an unbiased. I found that really uh, very valuable as well, because it really flips on its head, your approach to marketing your business, providing value to people, and being more transparent and open, and thus benefiting from the trust that is gained from that. It's very profound.
Well, yeah, the nice thing when we have a framework and a philosophy like they ask you answer, you don't have to sit there and debate whether or not you should talk about something. Did they ask? Yes. Did other people ask? Yes. So, okay, we're going to talk about it. How many times have you been asked what makes you different than your competitor? What makes this product different than your competitor's product? This brand versus that brand. You hear about that. And so, once again, do you want to own the conversation? Do you want to be a part of the conversation? Or do you want to let your competitors or some third party site dictate the knowledge of the marketplace for that subject matter? I am not interested in someone else teaching my potential customers about the thing that I sell and about the industry. I don't think they're going to do it as well. I don't think they're going to do it as honestly. Plus, I want to be a part of every conversation. Thus, we don't ignore anything. And the beauty of something like they ask you answer is it's so simple by nature, yet, to your point, most won't do it. I mean, the fact is, most listening to this right now aren't going to do it. That's a tragedy, but it's true. Just like you can take a horse to water, you can't make it drink. I take people, audiences to water all day long, looking at water. Less than 5% drink. But the 5% that drink changes their life, it changes their business forever. And so the beauty of They Ask You Answer, it was written for the person that isn't necessarily a marketing genius, because I wasn't a marketing genius. But here's what I understand. I understand how I think as a buyer, and I understand how other people think as buyers. And so that is a huge advantage. You know what else is an advantage? Being small, having a small budget. You can be nimble, you can be quick, you don't have to ask for stinking permission. You can produce a video, you can produce an article, you can post something on social, and you don't have to send it through some stupid attorney that's going to try to tell you why you can't do it. Who wants that life? I don't want that life. That sucks. I love small business ownership because it allows me to be a digital David in a land of Goliaths. All these Goliaths, big, fat, slow, cocky, arrogant, think they're this and that, not creative, and they're at this point they move like a turtle, whereas you can be nimble. You can make your own rules. You don't have to play by the same rules. I can remember when I started They Ask You Answer, I had quite a few of the big manufacturers in my space were saying to me, what gives you the right to say that? What gives you the right to do that? Because they saw all the momentum I was getting as this little business in Virginia before I went big time, right? And I remember hearing that question often, and I'd say, what gives me the right is the fact that I did it. That's what gives me the right. Because that's the beauty of the internet. I can do it, so I do it. And all you want to do is sit back and judge and complain while I pass you by. Shame on you. Good for me. That's why red tape always loses. I ain't got no red tape. If you're listening to this right now, you probably don't have any red tape. And if you do, it's self-imposed. So rip the stupid thing off and get on with it. Get creative. Get innovative. How do you get creative and innovative? You listen to your customers, and they will help you innovate. You don't have to invent some new widget. Two main innovations that we're seeing today is what we're willing to talk about and show, and what we're willing to sell. In other words, do you sell differently than everybody else in your industry? Or do you sell just like everybody? Like, is your sales process the same? Or do you make it easier? Figure out a way to make it easier. You make it easier, you're going to start to dominate. Do you show things that nobody else shows in your industry? If you do, you're innovative. Doesn't matter if it's been done that way for 1,000 years and everybody knows it. No, just by you showing it. Not sitting there saying, well, that's our secret sauce. We have a very proprietary method that we follow. No, bullcrap. Get out of here with that mess. Show the thing. You know, we became the first manufacturer to show our entire manufacturing process for fiberglass swimming pools. First one. And I mean, we have dealers constantly calling us saying, I got this, not dealers, potential dealers, pool builders. They call us and they're like, I got this homeowner. They want a river pool. They say the only pool they're going to have is a river pool. I don't carry a river pool. But they said, you were the only ones that were willing to show them how you make your pools. They trust you guys. So now I need to find out, how can I get your pool to install in their backyard? So this is why I don't have any salespeople to grow my manufacturing. Most manufacturers are all these regional sales reps. Travel around, try to talk to businesses, get them interested in carrying their product. What? I don't need that. All I need is one homeowner talking to one pool builder, telling that pool builder, hey, if you don't carry a river pool, well, then I'm not going to pull from you. I'm going to get a call probably that day. So I don't need regional sales reps. Dumb model. Because we're the trusted voice. Because we talk about what everybody else isn't willing to talk about. Does this apply to you if you're listening to this? Darn straight it does. And if you're listening to this and you're thinking to yourself, it doesn't apply to me, you're telling yourself a story and you should be working a 9 to 5 for somebody else. Because the beauty of entrepreneurship is that this is your ship. You are in control of it. You can make the turns. You can make the pivots. And again, you can make your own rules. That's invigorating. Who wouldn't want that? Well, there's people that don't want that. But if you listen to this, you probably like, cool, I want to control, dictate my destiny. That's glorious. And so stop complaining about what's happened with technology, what's happened with digital, what's happened with the internet. Say, well, what I want. It's funny. We complain about the internet. We complain about technology, but yet we're using it all day long ourselves as buyers and consumers. You have lost the right to complain about it if you use it. And you're not Amish, I'm sure. And so I don't know if you have Amish in the UK, but people probably know what the Amish are.
Yeah, they do.
Right? So point is, if you're using that stupid phone, if you're using Google, if you're using electricity, you're not allowed to complain. The only thing we're allowed to do is say, all right, how do we take advantage of this glorious time that we're in the history of the world? And for those that are willing to do that, you're crushing.
Wow, I think you know, you've said it all, and it is so important. And I think that you've already given £1 million worth of value on this call as well, because if people could just implement and start thinking in this way, but most importantly, take the action, because you're right, there is a lot of complaining that the forces are against me, or my competitors are doing this, or what can I do? But no one, or I'm generalizing, but very few businesses are thinking, well, how can I do it better? How can I be faster? How can I provide more value? How can I guide my customer more? They're not thinking that. They're just thinking, how can I do more of the same things everyone else is doing? Right. And you've just laid out, you've shifted the paradigm, right? Because I think there is like a moment where people just need to like press a button and reset how they think about their business and what it's going to take to stand out in today's marketplace.
Amen to that, brother. What's the choice? Again, you can keep control of your life, or you can go back to 9 to 5 working for somebody else. You got options. But if you're going to be in this game called entrepreneurship and business ownership, and have some fun, do it differently. Take a couple risks. I mean, good grief, you already did. You got a business for yourself. That makes you elite. It makes you different.
Wow. Marcus, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate your time and the value that you've brought to not just Trades Growth Summit, but through your books, through your speaking, and what you're doing in the world. And I know we have a few speakers as well on this program who are big fans of you and really happy to be sharing the stage, but also really are going to look forward to this content. I'd like to sort of just ask one more question before we sign off. And it's a simple one. It's if you could go back to your younger self, maybe 10, 20 years ago, what would you say? What advice would you give to your younger Marcus self to steer you down the right path?
Yeah, right. Isn't that nice? Hindsight. I would say there's so many there that I could go into. One would be, and I discovered this over time, but I didn't know it at first, is you don't have to be a jack of all trades. In fact, you probably don't want to be. And you're much better off being a master of one, because the jack of all trades oftentimes becomes the master of none. And that applies so much to business.
Mm-hmm.
The specialist generally outperforms the generalist. People say to me all the time, Marcus, how come you don't do concrete pools? Because I want to be the best in the world at one thing, fiberglass pools. That's what we're known for. We put them on the map. People don't see us as the in-ground pool company. That's the fiberglass pool company. That's River Pools. And so that's power. So just because I could have done it doesn't mean that I should have done it. It probably would have been a multi-million-dollar mistake and distraction had I done that. When we started producing content, I wasn't doing all this other social media stuff. I was producing articles, putting it on my website, and producing videos on YouTube. That was it. That was it. And really, I started with the articles, then did YouTube. Master it, then I would take on another thing. It wasn't until the last couple of years that we started doing more social. You can't be everywhere. Somebody says you got to be everywhere at one time. Yeah, right. I ain't got no team like that. You're an entrepreneur listening to small business. You don't have 1,000 people waiting on you. So you got to find a couple lanes, crush those lanes, be great at those things. And so that's the advice that I would give you. And let me just say to Francis that I appreciate this audience. I appreciate those that have served their country. that have given for a higher purpose. That's beautiful. They truly are heroes. The fact that you're doing this event is absolutely wonderful. And I'm honored to be a part of it. Absolutely. Hopefully everybody will reach out to me directly if they got questions for me that I didn't answer here, that you heard something, you're like, man, how do I ask Marcus a question? Reach out. Marcus at marcussheridan.com is my most personal email. Marcus at marcussheridan.com. And so you can reach out to me personally. You can find me on LinkedIn. That's where I hang out. That's the social media platform of choice for me. I dominate that platform, and you can't find me other places. Why? Because I want to be great in one area. I eat my own dog food. So you can find me on LinkedIn. Make sure you follow me on LinkedIn. If you're listening to this, get the book They Ask You Answer, because it will change the way you think about business, about trust, about sales and marketing. And other than that, man, this was a fun little ride. I'm glad I was a part of it.
Well, thank you for your time, the value that you've provided. Wow, I know that I am personally going to implement a whole bunch of stuff in my business to differentiate ourselves. And I really hope that some of our trades business owners at this Trades Growth Summit read the books, but more importantly, take action, do it differently, innovate, and have fun, and listen to Marcus Sheridan, because you'll go far. Thanks a lot, Marcus. Have a great day. Thanks for joining Trades Growth Summit. Courage and strength and well wishes to you and your family.
My pleasure.
Bye-bye.